Untangling a twisted ego. It's amazing how twisted the ego can be, how confused it can be about what is real and what is simply a thought in your mind, how confused it can be about what you feel and what is simply just biology, creating the same feelings it's used to creating in your body. This untwisting process is challenging. At the times when we need to have the most faith in our spiritual tools and teachers, we have the least. And we most want to hear things taught to us and said to us through the same twisted mechanisms. We want to hear that up is down, and we want to hear that right is blue, and left is north. And whenever we see this, and we do see this in other people, it's very easy to point it out. It's like, look at them. They want to go north, but they're going right. And it's like, sometimes north is right, but not all the time. And right, this is the sort of internal confusion that so many people struggle with. Through surrender and accepting where we are, we go through an unentangling process. We disentangle ourselves from all these thoughts and emotions and sensations that have been telling us about what life is, except for it hasn't been telling us what life is. It's been telling us what it was. We are past association machines. We go to our brain and our biology to tell us about the present moment by associating past experiences with the present. And while this will never really end for us, we are going to develop a new kind of curiosity. We have to start at the very beginning to develop this curiosity about ourselves. That when you wake up from the dream of your ego, you don't fully wake up. What you do is you wake up to a big knotted mess. Welcome everyone, I'm Jim Tolles. I've been helping people realize freedom from ego suffering since 2010. I have a blog called spiritualawakeningprocess.com. I do one-on-one sessions online, and I have online gatherings of students of 4 to 6 people that I help cultivate a sense of community so that through this shared connection, people can disentangle and help disentangle each other. It's so easy to stay in what we believe and feel. And I really want to emphasize the feeling part because I know so many people are trying to find some shred of truth, some solid ground to stand upon in themselves, but it is not in your feelings. Those two are part of the ego structure, part of the subconscious ego structure. Even now, as I'm speaking, I know that people are listening to this video and they're paying attention to their feelings more than their thoughts about whether they like this. But where is that like mechanism coming from? Where is that like or dislike mechanism seated? It's seated in the ego and its past experiences. And if I am saying the things that you want to hear today, you will keep listening. If I'm saying the things that you do not want to hear, you are most likely to click away. And even if you think you like what I'm saying, what you're associating with the past, with me now, is not what's happening. We are so entangled with our past experiences projected onto the present moment, we have no idea what's happening. And that's why it can be very jarring when we have a spiritual awakening, where we pop out for a micron of a second. And we see a glimpse of something happening in front of us outside of our old associations, and we don't know what to do. And whether we like it or dislike it's irrelevant. It's life. We're looking at it now. And in the work that I share, one of the most entangled things that people have is around authority, because so many people have been hurt by authority that they actually don't know what a healthy relationship with authority is. And so the past is projected forward onto the authority, and confusion around what is help in discipline versus what is oppression in discipline is. And there are big, big differences, because the oppressive discipline is just meant to make you suffer or live by someone else's rules. For those of us who are helping on the path to freedom, our rules have nothing to do with it. We see tools that help. We see tools that liberate. But much like a deep tissue massage, you're going to have to get serious about this work and to bear the discomfort of finding out that things are entangled in the wrong way, and they need to be unentangled. And so a part that's expecting more oppression and feels this intensity starts to say, oh, this is the oppression again. And it's like, no, that's just my elbow in your back on a knotted muscle. When the muscle releases, you gain freedom of mobility. The same applies with this work. When your mind is disentangled and now knows that up is up, north is north, west is west, blue is blue, you can engage with life more fully. You are freed of your confusion. But it's not easy at first, because as you disentangle your ego, your emotions will scream. If you have trauma and abuse, that will scream all the louder as it comes up. Surrendering to these things, breathing in these things, accepting these things doesn't lessen them. In fact, they will feel more strong as they release themselves, as you let go of resistance to the fact that these things happen and you have been carrying them, repeating them in your emotional body your whole life. And they've been entangled in how you're seeing life. Some of you have probably experienced that as you get closer to something that might feel loving, if it's authentic and new to you, a part of you starts to rise up with all this old pain, because that's what it was in the past, because that's also in the way of the new connection. And it creates more confusion. And so that has to be resolved. All these old emotional wounds. And I am a strong proponent of therapy and doing that work, but you have to surrender for it to work. If you show up looking for magic, it doesn't work. If you show up to do a show where you're just performing for the therapist as if they want a performance, it doesn't work. If you avoid parts of yourself, it doesn't work. It's surrender to all of it. Surrender to the big knot, all the entangled thoughts and emotions, sensations that are confused and are coming from the past or are projecting on the future and the present. Surrender, and we find a thread, and we start to pull, and we unwind, and we rest, and we pick the knot back up, and we unwind and untwist, and all these things again and again, surrendering, because spiritual freedom doesn't get rid of your problems, my friends. It doesn't do anything. It's simply the reality we live in, that you are already free, and you are free to repeat old ego-suffering patterns endlessly or not. Invariably, somebody comes along and says, well, I'm going to choose to do that because I am free, right? It's like, well, if you can't do something differently, then that's an intellectual game you're playing with yourself. You're gaslighting yourself. To say like, well, I could do something, not that I ever have, but I'm just going to keep drinking and doing all the things that make me feel terrible and working too many hours a work week, avoiding the problems with my family, right? All these things that we say to ourselves. That's a very entangled set of thoughts, but ultimately it's rooted in pain and fear and the unknown. The ignorance that we live in is vast. We surrender to that. We develop more curiosity as we go. We don't become less curious, and we don't know everything. We understand how little we do know. But where we can know things is in ourselves. And to go through this unentangling process. And I talk about journaling in a variety of different ways. I know that most of you aren't journaling the way I'm talking about it. That's a conversation we'd have to have in a session. So many misunderstandings about journaling and the multiple ways you can use that one tool. Same goes with meditation and breath work. The challenge again and again is accepting the level of ignorance you are and opening yourself to help. To somebody else like myself or somebody else who's a helper on this path who can see the knotted mess and who has unknotted enough stuff Maybe not everything. Not all helpers and spiritual people out there need to be perfect. They won't be. They're people. But they've done enough that they can help you at the level that you're at to unwind these pieces, to start to see that, oh, north is north, blue is blue, right is right, and left is left. And this is particularly challenging to all those of you who've been narcissistically abused. Like, I understand now how prevalent this is. And it's prevalent because when people don't have their needs met, all they can do is think about themselves. And the way people have been manipulating and continue to manipulate each other, that creates a confusion about what reality even is. That really is like you've been standing on your head your whole life, and awakening flips you upside down, except for now it's right side up. But at first you think it is upside down. Those are twisted ego thoughts. It's understandable. And we have to get used to going through disorienting periods as we reorient to reality. I really want to emphasize that. You're going to be disoriented by this work, and you're going to go through processes of grieving, of realizing, I was really wrong about so many things, but mostly I was wrong about myself. I didn't understand this. That you're going to say this. And can we go through the grief? Can we go through the humbling of the prideful ego that thought it knew itself and what it liked and how to live? And can we make that space to be reoriented and then repattern? Because as we disentangle the mind, we find out we don't know what to do. It's like, okay, I'm standing on my legs, but I've never walked before in my life. I have the freedom to run, to sprint, but I don't know how to even walk. I help people with that. Right? So after the disentangling, there is a deepening of self-understanding, a rooting into life. Or if we go back to the thread metaphor, we can now start to sew clothing and shoes and pants and things that are useful in this world, are practical, that engage with reality better. Being free from ego allows us to engage with reality better. There's nothing magical here. Neither is the work that all those of you who are hoping for some sort of magical being or magical energy shift or something to fix you are deluded and dissociated from the reality that you are a human being and your patterns. When you surrender to the reality and disentangle yourself from magical thoughts, you find your power. I know. I've done it for myself, and I've seen it in my other students, and the empowerment itself can be shocking to some of my students, particularly the ones who felt most disempowered. They don't know what to do with it. It's a great problem to have, and a great conversation to have. But it takes so much work to disentangle the ego from all of these messed up things that got taught you and then were played by you for however many decades you've been doing that. And you have to have that faith at first. Breathe, come back to awareness. Observe yourself. Get to know how these internal mechanisms are working of perception, of emotion, of physical sensation. Come back to awareness. Detach from it. Detach doesn't mean you stop feeling or you're dissociating. It just means you can watch it now. And you can start to learn about yourself. And there's so much more to say as you let go and you begin to do this detangling, disentangling work. But life is sitting out there waiting for you, my friends. It's waiting for you to live it. And you can choose to, or you can choose to continue to do the patterns you always have. The choice is yours. Thanks for listening. I encourage you to sign up to my free newsletter and visit spiritualawakeningprocess.com.